Okay, y'all, it looks like we have some traction in hip hop right now. I mean, Kendrick did his thing in LA after all the initial aspects of this rap battle went down with Daylight and Joey and Rayvon and all of that. Ab Soul has now dropped a track that is in response to the situation. And there's been a lot of misconceptions about what this track is and what he's trying to say. So I'm gonna try to clear that up. But first of all, if y'all don't know, like Absol is amazing. He's a phenomenal rapper. He is one of them ones basically at the end of the day. If you haven't heard Control System from 2012, Herbert from 2022, and Soulberg, which just came out last year, you need to listen. Probably one of my favorite songs from him overall, and one that I've been playing most often lately is from the Herbert album called Do Better. It just has a really nice cadence and a repetition inside of the chorus, and like the messaging. It's really, really cool. And so, well, first of all, I just have to stop one thing. It's weird to me that people are starting this narrative after hearing, and I say hearing with quote to you because I don't understand how this is hearing this song. They hear the track from a episode that just released called Dot Dot Dot, and they think he's dissing his fellow West Coast rappers. That he's dissing them or like talking down to them because they, quote unquote, lost a battle to Joey Badass. And I don't know how you're hearing that in this song. That's not what he's doing. So first of all, let me actually frame it correctly. When you listen to the song, it's broken down from a structure standpoint into two parts. So it's a half and a half. The first half of the track is Ab Soul going through the history, basically, of his connection to New York and specifically his connection with Johnny Shife and Pro Era overall. So if you didn't catch it in the song, he's saying that, hey, I have these memories, this circa 2011, when I was in New York talking to Johnny Shife about my album, The Long Term Mentality. I believe it's called Long Term Mentality. In the song, he says LTM. And he said these young dudes, these kids, they come in quiet and they're watching. And so he said these young kids come in quiet, they're watching. And in a few bars down the line, he says, oh, yeah, those quiet ones I was talking about. And right before this line, he said, it's a bunch of badasses looking for attention, something like that. And obviously that's a reference to Joey Badass. And he said, yeah, those ones I was talking about. So Joey Badass and his crew, like the Pro Era crew and Capital Steez, all of them were in the studio watching what Ab Soul was doing, learning from him and like in the game and Johnny Shife. And then they came up just a little bit later. And so he's saying basically, because he says it again in the second half of the track, Joey's my little homie. He was around when I was doing my thing. He was learning from me, and we cool. So it was really funny that this is setting up like the competitive jab that's coming in the second half of the track, but I'm just gonna let it sit there. He's telling the history of this. He talks about this is what happened in New York. Joey was there. Joey was learning from me, and then he brought up what Daylight and Rayvon were doing. He said Daylight, what he said, what Quill is Daylight's another nickname for him. What he said was a little bit insensitive, because when Daylight mentioned like if people knew what they knew about you when he was referring to Joey, they would jump off a bridge too. And a lot of people thought the bleeped out part, that he said if some knew what they knew about you, they thought he was talking about Capital Steez, but Daylight came out and said that he was talking about Ab Soul, which is why Ab Soul. So that's a bit insensitive because people don't know why I jumped off the bridge. But that wasn't a diss, because if you were paying attention in the follow-up line, he says they don't know though what he, referring to Daylight, was telling me during my intervention. So when Ab Soul was needing help and he was going through his depression and anxiety and like all those issues that he was dealing with, Daylight was there with him, basically helping him like get through it. Daylight was giving him advice. Daylight was talking him through the hard time that he was dealing with. That type of thing lets you know that that wasn't a diss toward Daylight. He was just saying, yeah, Daylight, that was a little insensitive, but y'all don't understand. Like, me and Daylight cool, so don't try to turn it into like a Daylight disrespecting me type of thing. And then he follows it up by talking about what Rayvon was doing. He gave Rayvon his props and big up to him, but he said Rayvon probably, which a lot of us who were following this battle, which I included, which in my previous video I talked about this, were saying that Rayvon probably didn't cook his battle tracks a little bit long enough. He was so eager, he jumped in, he was looking for all the smoke, like Absol says, but he didn't quite let his pen get as nuanced and layered as it could be. He instead focused on the Diddy angle quite a bit, and that probably was to his detriment, honestly. Some people were fine with that. I know a lot of people, especially here on the West Coast, are like, hey, Ray, he did his thing, he probably won as a result, which I don't mind people saying that. I told you in the previous video, they all have a case for like people saying like, hey, they won, they all did great. But that's personally one of the reasons why I think Ray lost to Joey, is that like he didn't quite bring enough material and it didn't quite land as much as well. Joey rebutted it really well. And Ab-Soul, to a certain extent, agrees with that. He says that, hey, he probably let that Diddy angle go on a little bit too much. Probably referenced Diddy a little bit too often. Ab-Soul said that, but he said, hey, he's really direct. He was looking for the smoke. That's why he's so blunt. So he was bigging him up. He wasn't talking down to him. He wasn't dissing him. That narrative is completely wrong. So I don't understand where people get this idea that Ab-Soul was dissing the West Coast rappers. He was just saying, hey, y'all, this is kind of like, well, they may have made a little misstep here, there. Small ones. They're still my homies. I'm still with them. Not a diss. And then the track transitions to the second half, which is where he's throwing competitive jazz. Now, he said, put a pause on that. And then I'm going to put pause on that, like pause as a dog. So he was talking about a dog. He continued to scheme, and his rapping really elevates. If you're like, okay, the first half was boring to me, I just want to hear some good rapping, well, then just go to the second half of the track, because he's really started rapping. He's got entendre, he's got bars layered up, he's like talking some stuff and throwing competitive jabs at Joey. Remember earlier when I said Joey's my little homie? He literally says that line in the second half of the track. He says, Joey, that's my little homie. And then he referenced the song that they did together, and now I'm blanking on it. Oh, because he says don't go into the void, the dark void. Joey Badass has a song featuring Ab-Soul called The Dark Void or something like that. And so bars, layers, entendre, is all there, and he's now getting to the ring basically. Now I'm not saying he's like looking for to call Joey out and get into a battle. He might be. I'm not speaking for him, but he definitely was like, hey, they wanted me to respond. Joey said a lot. I'm ready to come back at it. Even the part about people don't get that the aspect. I think this was back in the first half of the track. He said the TD East bar was a stretch. I don't know how y'all didn't miss that part, saying like he's praising Joey, like he was saying Joey's take was a little strong. Like he's like that's a lot to be saying, like just being talking about TDEs like I'm doing more for you. Like that was a good battle bar, it was a good angle, but like come on, like that ain't true, which is what Ab-Soul was getting at. So he's responding to what Joey was saying competitively for fun, but he's battling back, and I don't see how people are missing that. So that's what I wanted to address in this video. The track was cool. I loved it. I've listened to it back like 3 or 4 times already. I'm probably missing a whole bunch of stuff. I'm going to go ahead and tell you now, if you think you understood everything that Ab-Soul was saying on your first listen, or if you did a quick skim through it, you did not understand the track. You need to go back and listen to it again and again. I promise you that no matter how smart you think you are, no matter how good of a rapper you might be listening to, or anything, if you think you understood everything Soul said immediately, I'm going to tell you right now, you 100% did not, and you should go back and listen again and very closely, and maybe even read the lyrics this time, assuming that the lyrics are even correct on Genius or something like that. But I just had to speak on this because I saw a lot of people with some weird opinions and weird takes that were just factually incorrect. So I wanted to address that, and I wanted to make sure that y'all gave Ab-Soul his respect, because that man is amazing at rapping, and I want to hear more. And Joey, if you need to respond, because I want to hear you and Ab-Soul go at it. That would be a main card fight. So let me know what y'all think about that. I'm looking forward to your thoughts, and I'll see you in the next one.